Hi, good afternoon. That was a high energy event to talk to follow. So I'm going to do a little bit different approach. I'm going to make you not work your energy, your body, but work your mind. Because I think you come to Leap to be able to see forward, to see the future. And I'm going to talk to you about what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. One of the biggest issues about trying to understand the future is that it's usually unclear, right? And if you don't understand what's going to happen, then how do you know what you're going to do to prepare for it? So what I'm going to do today is in 20 minutes, try to give you a better sense of what's coming. I wrote a book specifically for this issue. It's called Our Next Reality, and it's actually the foreword's written by Neil Stephenson, who invented or coined the word metaverse. And as we all know, metaverse is these days a bad word, but I think the important thing is the concept behind the metaverse is actually very real, and hopefully by the end of this 20 minutes, you're going to agree with me that it's going to be an important part of our daily lives. When we wrote this book with my co-author, it's important that we wanted to make sure that both the positive and negative aspects of how technology is going to impact the world is talked about, because too many books and materials out there is one-sided. So I'm going to play the more positive role, and my co-founder is going to play the devil's advocate. Now, what is part of this new reality? How is it going to change our world? The book is actually written with 12 chapters in mind, starting with, is this really going to happen? Is this real, or is this just another hype cycle? Also, kind of what is the role of AI? AI is such a big topic these days, and as in every presentation these days. And then we go into all of the other issues about societal impact, technology impact, industry impact, and so forth. Right? So I'm not going to go through all the details. But I think what we need to do is to break the mold, go past what we've been doing in the past. The last 30 years, we focused on 2D screens, in essentially what people call the black mirror, and we need to go through that, break the screen, and go through that into a 3D space. Now, every new technology we know are double-edged swords. It's got good and bad, and we need to understand both sides of it. But I think what's even more important to understand is that you don't get either good or bad. You get a little bit of both. And so it's a lot more like the yin-yang symbol, that even in the best situations, you're going to have a little bit of bad, and in the worst situations, you're going to have some good. Now, we know that the metaverse term is normally associated with a dystopian future, right? So all the novels talk about dystopia. But really, what we need to understand is that it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, this metaverse is not only not dead, it's actually inevitable. It will be something that will definitely happen. And hopefully you will agree with me very soon why. Now, one of the biggest issues with the confusion of the metaverse is people don't know what it is. They have different definitions of it. So I'm going to tell you my definition, which is hopefully very simple to remember. It's the 3D version of the internet we've been building for the last 30, 40 years, powered by AI, interfaced through an XR device. Right? Not immediately. Right now, most people will actually interface through 2D devices. In the long run, they will use 3D devices or XR devices. My friend Neil Stephenson actually looked at this definition. I asked him, is this okay? And he said, no, it works with me. So if it's good enough for Neil, it's good enough for me. Now, why do I think 3D is so important? Because if you look at how technology has evolved over the last 100 years, media and our content has continually, gradually evolved together. From newspapers with just text, to radio with a 1D communication, TV with 2D communication, games with 2.5D communication, and then interaction. And then now we get into immersive devices that gives you a full 3D environment. We are animals that have evolved over the last 5 million years to be in a 3D world. We maximize our potential, our happiness in this 3D world. So there's no reason why we should be locked into a 2D space. The other thing is interaction models. We've been using very unnatural interaction models, keyboards, mouse, touchscreen. What we need to be doing is to use the most natural things we have, our eyes, our mouth, our hands, our feet, right? And using maybe even our brain signals as a way to interact with these communication devices. That's where things are going. Right? If you look at the screens that have been in our lives 100 years ago, we had 0 screens. It's hard to imagine because right now there's so many screens in our lives, and every few decades we've been adding screens. We would think that, hey, there's going to be a dozen more screens in the next 10, 20 years, and it's actually the complete opposite. We will be seeing all of those screens that used to be on our walls, on our tables, in our pockets, be subsumed into the screen that's on our face. And when that happens, we will soon go back to where we started, which is no screens. Really having a natural interface to technology. Right? So I'm speaking very quickly because I'm trying to get through 300 pages of content in 20 minutes. But feel free to come talk to me afterwards. Now we can see devices have been definitely getting smaller and better. When I started, these things were 2.5 kilos and $400,000 for them. Now they're a few $1,000s or maybe less than $1,000. This is the new Apple devices getting everybody excited. But we look at our HTC devices, it's 1/3 the price, 1/3 the weight, right? And it does most of what that $3,000, $4,000 device does. So we are getting to a point where mixed reality devices that does AR, does VR, can all be in one device that can be on your face that's actually relatively comfortable. So we will be having something that's close to what that chart is showing. Now let's get to the other topic, artificial intelligence. Everybody's afraid that robots are going to take over and kill us and all of that. And is it possible? Will AI be have consciousness and so forth? I think not only is it likely to happen, is quite attainable, and it will be quite attainable in the short term. Right? Now, how does AI and metaverse come together? The reality is that without AI, the metaverse cannot exist. Almost every aspect of what will create the metaverse, from the world scanning to the interface to the natural language to the virtual NPCs, all of those require AI for it to happen. So now that AI has gotten to a point where it is so much more mature than it was a few decades ago, or even 1 decade ago, we will be able to create metaverse type environments almost seamlessly. Right. Now, when most people think of AI, they think of Gen AI. I think a couple of the presentations before were talking about Gen AI, but it actually, AI started 60 years ago, and more procedural wise, right? So Gen AI is just this current phase, and Gen AI is not the end. Right? And most people, when they think of Gen AI, they think of text, they think of chatbots. But the reality is Gen AI can also be used to create music, create photos, create video, and also create 3D worlds. So very soon we will be able to have prompt to worlds. Right? It used to take millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to create 3D environments that people really got excited about. Very soon we will be able to do that for almost nothing, and anybody in the world can do it. We'll have 8 billion developers for 3D worlds. That's really the biggest issue that's kept XR from being accepted, is the lack of content, and we will solve that because of AI. And AI today is actually being trained just on text. A lot of AI, the ones that you guys interacting with ChatGPT and so forth, is just on text. So imagine how amazing it is with just text. But a lot of people say we're going to run out of data soon. And are we really going to run out of data? If you look at how much text data there's 180 zettabytes of data of text today. Right? How much is that? That's 180 billion terabytes. Okay, so that means all those terabyte hard drives, 180 billion of them are out there. And when you train in a large language model, you're training on a few terabytes of data. So I think we've actually got a lot more text than people think. Now, in fact, if you go beyond the text side and you go into multimodal models, which is what people are going into now, we have 800 zettabytes of multimodal model, voice, music, video, so forth. We have countless more sensor models, and then almost unlimited synthetic data, right? All of that is going to be used to create the next generation models. So, we really don't have to worry about data being out of data. In fact, the new models that we're seeing coming out of the AI space is actually, artificial models training smaller models, and they can perform just as well at maybe 1/10 the size. So artificial synthetic data actually may not be a problem. It actually may be the solution to this problem. So really now instead of that brain that just had text, now you have brains that have all the modes. We were training a blind and deaf model. Now we give it eyes, we give it ears, we give it all kinds of senses that we have. And that allows us to get to the next generation, of models that will actually potentially be conscious. Now there's a lot of debate over what consciousness is, and people think, oh, consciousness is a point. Actually, consciousness is not a point, it's a spectrum, right? Going from sentient, which is just being able to feel something around you, to sapience, to having some type of intelligence, to transcendence, which is, really understanding everything. And even bacteria have sentience. They can respond to the environment. You have ants and bats. You have Nagel and the bat, and chimps are able to recognize itself in the mirror, have that self-awareness, right? And of course humans. Now the initial versions of AI did not have consciousness. They were just procedural. But now that we have large language models, frontier models, we are getting to some hints of consciousness, and a lot of reports are telling us that. Now, where things are really going is kind of AGI and strong AI, which is human level intelligence, and then maybe superhuman intelligence. And then, but even then, it's below what humanity as a whole can get to. But very soon, we will get to the next step, which is artificial superintelligence. That's where essentially you get a self-learning AI that progresses at exponential rates, and it will be millions of times smarter than the smartest humans. At that point, our position in this universe, in this hierarchy of animals, of beings on this planet will change. We're hoping that AI will bring us along with it to make us smarter, but we will probably still be significantly less intelligent, even with their help, than a machine, just because it works at different speeds. The most dangerous part is actually the middle part, where before it gets to the super AI, we have AIs that are very capable, but don't yet have real consciousness, don't know what's right and wrong, and will be misused and misguided by bad actors. That's the part that we need to be most worried about. It's actually the humans that we need to worry about, not the AIs that are going to take over. If you listen to the experts, they're saying, oh, when is it going to start to happen is when AIs can program AIs. And a few years ago, people were saying 2050 is about when it is. And within 2 years, it's now dropped to 2026. People think that AIs will start programming AIs. And then these same experts, thousands of experts online in this space are saying general AI by 2030. A few years ago, it was 2080, right? So you can see as technology progresses, just in a few years, we've dropped down from a few decades in terms of when people expect this to happen. So it's coming very, very quickly. And then will AI have consciousness? 66% of these industry experts think it will. So, I think denying it will actually be to our folly, right? Now, if we actually do get AGI, it brings a lot of benefits because it's going to help create a much higher level of understanding than we've ever had. It's going to make us more and more productive than we ever had, and that actually liberates us from the things that we used to have to do for work. It solves our energy problems, our health problems. It'll solve, create essentially a world of abundance, right? It sounds great, and all the stuff in the sci-fi, that's possible. But there's also the downside, right? People are like, oh, this is like the tweet here says, the last tweet from humankind was that, GPT-5 was kind of impressive. Or you have people like Eliezer Yudkowsky who wants to blow up all the data centers, right? I would urge everybody, don't panic, right? These up and down cycles are normal. I've been in the AI and XR industry for over 30 years, so I've seen a lot of cycles, and there was a few cycles even before I joined. So what we need to do is to really break down what are the different types of risks, right? There's the takeover risk, which I actually think is the least scary part. There is the alignment risk of, okay, it's not aligned, it might actually do something wrong against us, which we do need to work on, but it's probably something that's solvable. The bigger issues are the immediate issues of job displacement and societal instability, which will be created when we have 10, 20, 50% of our population being displaced by automated systems. And the other very, very eminent issue is misuse, misinformation, and manipulation. When you have this technology that gives you a superpower, the first people to use it are bad actors who want to take advantage of it for their personal gains. And it will be used, both by people who want to sell you things, as well as people who want to break into systems, as well as people who just want to create harm and havoc. So in terms of the job displacement issue, if you just look at what OpenAI put out, this is from almost more than half a year ago, like 8-9 months ago, and it's those systems then was able to outperform 80-90% of humans in most capability tests. Right? And on this particular way, what we're finding out is that the people that are most at risk are the high income folks, probably the folks in this room or the folks that are in the office that used to be, we felt were safe, right? Where are the most highest exposures are the writers and the mathematicians and the accountants and graphics designers. The ones that are the safest are the dishwashers and the carpenters and the plumbers. So I don't think we want to do those things, but those from an occupational perspective. In fact, if you look at embodied AI, it's coming too. Within a few years, these super intelligent systems will be put into these highly maneuverable bodies. So even then, the physical labor may not be needed. Now that sounds like a really, really bad thing, but the reality is it may not be. If you look at productivity increase over the last few decades, or last 100 plus years, the more we increase, the higher the income of the country, the lower the amount of hours we work. Right, and what we find is that also, if you look at this chart, even today, the lowest income countries have the highest labor hours. If you extrapolate that to kind of the maximum, essentially we get to a point where, as we increase productivity as a planet, we actually go towards zero working hours, which essentially liberates us. This is not a bad thing, right? Not working is not a bad thing. It actually gives us a freedom to pursue the things that we want. It allows us to go and create art, to be able to go into 3D worlds and build, sculptures and worlds and museums and businesses to invite our friends to, or just to entertain and travel and do virtual travel to places that's not possible. Right? In fact, HTC created the Viber system to allow you to do these things. We can educate our children in much more interactive ways that they will appreciate and want to utilize. You can turn your home into whatever environment you want to. People are afraid of, what if this XR systems come? It's going to make you fat and, just like Wall-E. I actually think it's wrong because if you look, they're using 2D screens and they're sitting around. If they were actually using VR devices, they're standing, they're moving. They're actually more active than they would be. The other danger is misuse in terms of using AI and XR to help do advertising.
This little baby, they're gonna slap.
So I'm sure you guys remember this scene from Ready Player One,
this is the first of our
where you're using XR and AI to advertise and manipulate. Very possible, but something that we should actually regulate, because this is a very bad outcome. Now, how do we mitigate and prevent these issues? First thing is education. Why I'm here is because I want to help people understand both the good and bad outcomes. Let people know what's possible. Get regulatory bodies involved. Have countermeasures to do protect us from the bad actors out there. Right? We need to retrain our workforce because not everybody will be able to find new work. They need to have new purpose, and we definitely need a UBI safety net from the government. We also need an open infrastructure creation around the world so that people have a new outlet that is beyond their physical environment to express themselves and have some place to give them new purpose. So, and a global effort to do that AGI alignment that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to show you this short video. This is Arthur C. Clarke from 1964.
Won't be men or monkeys. They'll be machines. The remote descendants of today's computers.
So 60 years ago, he said this, and it's amazing how prescient he is that he is able to see what we have today, that he's saying that the next generation of beings will be artificial. So we really shouldn't be afraid of them. We should actually embrace them, because of these new conscious super intelligent beings, they are our children. We should look at them as our offsprings, and if your children was more successful than you, you'd be happy. And I think we need to take that same perspective. We should nurture it and help it become a better version of itself. So I'll leave you with kind of these last few things to think about. If we want to have the future we want, we need to make sure that AI labs are focused on safety instead of speed. We're in a race right now with all of the places trying to get there first. We need all of the the metaverse platforms to create meaning instead of manipulation, which is really not being advertising driven. We need corporate leaders to focus on good instead of greed. Really think about how do we do good with the technology and the products that we have. And governments definitely need to focus more on people versus power. All the government people today just want to stay in power. They'll do whatever is possible. They need to think about their constituents. And lastly, as individuals, we need to focus much more on status, on substance versus status, because status is temporary. Substance is something you take with you. Whether or not the world changes, you still have that. So at the end of the day, the way to sum it up is to really think much longer term versus short term, right? That's the problem with today is all of the companies are focused on the next quarter, and that's not the future. So here's some people that's actually given some very complimentary reviews to the Ray Kurzweil, Eric Bernolson, Neil Stevenson, Peter Diamandis, David Newman from Media Lab, Jason Heiner from CNET or ZDNet, and Scott Stein, both these editors of ZNet and CDNet. So if you want to learn more about this, here's a link to the book, and it's available tomorrow on Amazon. So you can pre-order today and you'll get it tomorrow. So thank you all, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Alvin, and happy book publication day for tomorrow. Great getting that snapshot of what's